Welcome to our October Lunch and Learn. And thank you all so much for being here and for joining us this afternoon. I am very grateful to be one of the organizers of this event. And I wanted to share with you that our Lunch and Learn is a monthly free virtual. So please feel free to share this link whenever you get it. Like,
Amir, you're muted.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our October Lunch and Learn. We're very grateful to have you all. My name is Amir Alavi, and I'm the Director of Chronic Absenteeism Reduction at the Riverside County Office of Education. And we are collaborating with a total of 9 county offices of education and bringing you this free monthly virtual event. We have our friends from the Butte County Office of Education, from the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, the LA County Office of Education, the San Diego COE, the Nevada County Superintendent of Schools, Santa Clara County Office of Education, Orange County Department of Education, and last but not least, the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And we're very grateful to bring this event to you. We have a lunch and learn every month and every year, and we're going to try to feature school districts or school sites with outstanding attendance practices, and we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. And thank you all again for joining us. And I'm going to put a link in the chat later on that will have, it'll be the link to our YouTube channel. And we're recording this session every month. What we do is we'll record the session and upload it to the YouTube channel so that you all will have a nice library of best practices featuring various school districts. So thank you all again for joining us. And today we've got a real treat for you. I'm very grateful to introduce you all to Lisa Todd, who's the coordinator of student services at Palm Springs Unified School District, which is in Riverside County. And I've had the pleasure of working with that school district and with Lisa for many years now. And Lisa, thank you so much. We're grateful to have you present. And with no further ado, turn it over to you, my friend.
All right, thank you, Amir. And actually a small development, last week I was actually promoted to Director of Student Services. So that was, I have to get used to introducing myself that way. But thank you all for being here today. Really enjoy the process of being able to get together. And I've learned a lot from other districts. So I was excited when Amir asked to present some of the things that are happening in Palm Springs. And as I go through the information that we're utilizing today, I wish I could say that we were in a position we were in 4 years ago where we were really making gains with our attendance, really making gains in our reductions of suspensions and expulsions. And while this year is starting off better in many ways than last year, we're still, definitely recovering from the pandemic that we all have had to deal with. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. So some of you, if you're familiar at all with, which I'm guessing if you do anything with attendance, that you're familiar with the work of the Attendance Works and the amazing programs and materials and research that they put out. And so you'll see the theme that we've kind of adopted for this year in particular is from their Showing Up Matters for Real framework, because we realized that we really had to start changing our messaging as we are returning back to school. So I'm going to go over some of the things looking at how our system works, but just kind of wanted to give you that framework. So to start with, and I see Amir also added this, like a little information about who's here in the room. And so if you can put your name, your agency information, your role in the chat, And then I always like to start off knowing how you're feeling today based on the dog scale. So if you want to add that as part of your entry here, it's always good to do a check-in when we're getting to know each other. And this one's one of my favorites. So unfortunately, the people I meet with get to see the dog scale a lot. So I'm really working on expanding the options. There's a sheep one and a cat one. I don't like the cat one as much. It's not nearly as expressive. So, but I'll give you just a second to make sure that you have some time. I see some 4s. That's nice. That one looks pretty happy. It's always the number 5s that worry me a little bit, or the number 3s. And it's October, so I know that this is always the, seems to be the longest month ever, aside from March, but we won't worry about March yet, so. All right, so I'm gonna move on. Hopefully you got a chance to put that information in. Otherwise, just pick a number and then you can put the rest of your information in the chat as we go. So a little bit, it's really exciting knowing that there's people from all over the state, all over different areas. So I thought it was be important to share a little bit of information about our school district. We are a unified school district, so we cover not just the city of Palm Springs, but we have schools and serve kids in 5 cities across the Coachella Valley, in the western part of the Coachella Valley. We're about 45 minutes east of LA, to give you an idea. Our district is just over 20,000 students with 26 schools listed there, how they're broken down. I have some information about our demographics. We're primarily Hispanic. Our majority of our population is Hispanic, but we do have populations in other ethnicities. We're a very large English language learner population, so we're close to 30%. And we are at approximately 91% of our students qualify as socioeconomically disadvantaged. I always think it's important to kind of point that out. People have, when I travel outside of our area and I'm talking about working in Palm Springs, people have kind of a perception of what Palm Springs looks like, primarily because of what you see as a resort town. We've got people who come here for vacation, a lot of snowbirds, a lot of kind of people who are well off and have a second home here, that kind of thing. And the reality is that those people are not involved in the school system for the most part. So those, the snowbirds we're talking about, the people who have a ton of money aren't necessarily within our district and supporting kids that are coming through our district. So I always think it's helpful to give people a bigger or a more clear perspective on the population that we're actually serving. Although right now the weather's starting to be nice, so we're excited about that. We're about ready to turn off our air conditioning, so that'll be the next thing. We also have gone up in our numbers for McKinney-Vento students, particularly, and honestly, that's probably a little low right now. Because we're regularly receiving the referrals and calls for families that are losing their housing now that some of the housing, the eviction moratoriums have closed out and those kind of things. So I'm sure you're all seeing some similar trends. As my role in the director position is really trying to focus our efforts at the school sites, we're at the district level really implementing the initiative of MTSS across all of our programs, so the multi-tiered systems of support. And so I'm trying to change the conversation to get away from attendance as a standalone issue, a siloed thing that we have one person who cares about it on a school site, but that attendance is an outcome of everything else that we're doing. And so it really is focused on all of the efforts around our high quality instruction, our safe and supportive school climate, that results in better attendance. So it's really hard to fix attendance by itself unless we're paying attention to all those other things. So again, it really is part of the MTSS program. I'm really also trying to have it be focused as a belief system from the administration and the counseling staff. We previously have had some specialists that are in classified positions that work at school sites to kind of help facilitate SART meetings and things like that. And what that wound up happening, or what that led to, was that those specialists were the attendance person, and it was now the responsibility was kind of handed off to them, and it wasn't part of the school culture and that conversation. So really trying to shift that back to having this be something that's part of the district or part of the school site culture on a daily basis. And then we are really looking at making sure that we have a broad range and in intentionally developed tiered system of responses, so that we're able to identify, we have a strong tier 1 system, be able to identify when students rise to a higher level of need, and then being able to make sure that we actually have the services to put in place for them. And so, and I'll share this presentation with Amir, and it does have a link to some of the resources that I have that I share with site administration, constantly adding some things there, but I'll make sure that that gets to you as well. And again, I use a lot of, rather than reinventing the wheel, the messaging coming from Attendance Works is amazing. And so I really do utilize a lot of the information from them. This is just kind of a broad umbrella or broad range of strategies that I share and refer back to school site administration when we're talking about finding solutions. I'm going to talk more specifically about specific things in each of the tiers, but this is kind of as we start talking about where they even get started. And I know Amir's a fan of the book, but if you haven't looked at the School Site Team's Guide to Tackling Attendance Challenges, I think I have a copy around here somewhere. That is a great, it's almost like a workbook to walk you through how to develop a team, who should be on it, looking at the data. So I try and share that with the school sites as we're going through this process. But when they're talking about things, I start looking at what they're doing on their campuses that address the strategies here on this list. So some of the things, I'm not going to talk about all of these today. I'm kind of picking one from each tier that is a little unique for what we're trying to do right now. But really coming from my office, making sure we are the ones that provide the data. And so we send out monthly interactive reports. We're really lucky to have a data specialist within student services that is like a master of Excel, and has, we were able to put together last year an interactive data sheet that where they could actually filter out health exclusion, attendance codes and things like that, so we could get an idea of who really needed to have some attendance support services separate from the pandemic, from the health exclusions. And then really, as I'm meeting with anybody, I'm talking about the kind of relationships that we're building with our families in our district. I'll talk a little bit about a particular position that is called our prevention specialist and some of the things that they do, some very specific programs that they have developed. And then I'm lucky enough next week to be co-presenting with Amir for, we do effective start trainings. So we'll be doing that next week. And then I will talk about an initiative that we're working on with supporting our students re-entering our system from incarceration, expulsion, disconnection, and some intentional efforts that we're making there to loop those students back in. But so I always like to, and actually I'm going to stop share for a second because I want to make sure that I have clicked the share sound. Okay. Talking about relationships, I work with the attendance clerks, the registrars, school counselors at the school sites. And so one of the things that we talk about is that every staff member on school campuses has the ability to impact students' day and then their attendance. If they want to be at school, they will make an effort to be at school. And so if you haven't already, oh, sorry, let me try that again. Okay. That better? I'm seeing the slides now. Yes, okay, perfect. So you may, some of you may have already seen this video, but I like to start the year showing this. So it's just about a 3-minute video, not put together by me, so I can't take credit for that, but I would like to share that with you right now, and then. And can you hear the sound?
Hey, Mr. Q. Did you see that? Why would somebody do that?
Please go into the classroom, no talking, quietly.
Hey, Miss Merida, how you doing?
We need you inside.
How do you think that makes us feel? I forgot my number.
What's your name?
Jordan
What's your last name?
Carter.
All right. Go ahead.
School is hard enough.
Come on in, sit down quietly at your desks, and begin writing.
This kind of stuff just makes it harder.
I said quietly, please. Who's talking? Is it you, Sophie? Don't let it be you.
Don't believe me?
Sophie.
Please just watch.
I'm not up here for me, I'm up here for you. Pay attention, okay? Now somebody answer me. Somebody needs to answer me really fast.
Every time we're ignored or yelled at or silenced, a teacher takes away what's possible.
No horseplay, no running, and especially no talking.
Moment by moment.
Miss Garrity, your student's behavior yesterday in the lunchroom, it was terrible. Next time, silent lunch.
Did you hear that? Stay in line and catch a bubble. I'm not playing.
If this is education, we're in trouble. Bye, Miss McGarrity. Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. The way it is now, 2 of the 3 of us will never be able to really read. It doesn't have to be this way.
Hey, Jordan, how you doing? Good.
Everyone we meet throughout our day can make a difference.
I've been waiting for you to arrive.
All the difference.
Good, how are you? Great. Hi, Jordan. Bye, Jason.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and put your number in.
Talk with us, not at us.
That's okay. I'll look it up for you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay.
All right. Have a
Teach us what we need to know.
good morning.
That's how we get smarter.
Well, good morning, Sophie, Janicia, and Jordan.
And when you talk with us and teach us, give us bigger and bigger words.
Now what I'd like you to do, children, is turn around and converse with your neighbor and discuss where the mother might have gone.
Words that we can use to read and understand.
She is prey for eagles, so she hunts at night.
And that will take us places we can never reach without you.
Remember, we're entering the learning zone. Now, how can we show our respect to the children and teachers who are working?
We can walk quietly.
Yes. Okay, kids, so what I'd like you to do is continue writing your narrative, documenting your emotions if you were the baby owl and your mother abandoned you in the nest.
What can you do? Learn all that you can so that you can challenge us to be our best.
You would have stayed and assisted them in whatever they needed.
Share yourself with us and show us how to share ourselves with others. Give us courage. Give us compassion. Help us find our own voices so we can become who we are meant to be. Why would you want to silence us?
All right, so I will get back to slides here. So again, the reason that I share that video with all of the support staff, as well as just the other people that I meet with, is because it's one of the few videos I found that isn't just focused on the teacher relationship. I know that's huge and that's something we talk about all the time, but I really like the fact that it talks about the impact of the bus driver, or the impact of the cafeteria worker, or the impact of the site administrators and things like that, so that we can kind of reframe it to be all of you have an impact in students' experience on a school campus, And that then impacts their attendance if we're talking about attendance. So it's looking at some tier one. Again, the theme that we chose looking at for this year was the showing up matters for real framework with the attendance works. And so this shares, and are you seeing the slides right now? Did I pick it right? Okay, just wanted to make sure. And so it talks about the reason we went with this, and I was talking about having to reboot our messaging, was that, you know, we went from a period of time where we were having a lot of punitive, you know, that kind of punitive language. You're going to be in trouble if you don't send your students to school. Then we had the pandemic and we said, don't send your students to school. It's not safe. Then when we started returning, we said, please send your students to school, but don't send them sick. And we're going to send them home if they cough or do anything. And now we're trying to get back to the messaging of school is the best place for your student, and here's why. And so if you haven't looked at the framework and the language that's used with attendance works, I really liked the phrases or the messaging they have, and they have things for both elementary and secondary families, but really looking at the importance of these routines, particularly talking about being able to have a consistent routine can benefit students who are dealing with uncertainty and trauma. And so then being able to regularly get back into getting up every morning, getting dressed, going to school, following the school bell schedule, helps them be able to feel in a more safe position. And so I'll make sure, that I'll send the links to everything. But it's really awesome. It's part of their attendance awareness campaign, I want to say, so it's a little separate resource for them. And so really use this as our focus and helping us with messaging around back to school, our first set of student conferences, helping attendance staff be able to have those conversations, and then any of the support staff that are going out and trying to help families reintegrate with schools is giving them all the reasons why school is the best place for students to be. So I'll share, this is just a little Canva video that I put together that we started putting out at the beginning of school, just to have some music so it's not, doesn't have language or dialogue or anything like that. I'll show that real quickly and then talk about some of our activities during Attendance Awareness Month. So the You Count, Don't Miss Out is our kind of overarching attendance campaign for Palm Springs Unified. We've been using that for a couple of years. And so specifically for Attendance Month, we added that showing up matters for real, but we kind of have our You Count, Don't Miss Out throughout the year. So we do a lot of different activities during September Attendance Awareness Month. And one of the things that we've added the last 2 years is a district-wide Spirit Week. And so that includes our office staff, our district office staff, district departments, as opposed to just the school sites. And we actually gave them, one of the middle schools had already developed their own Spirit Week because they're super into doing this kind of stuff. So people, school sites had, and actually everyone else had 2 different options. And then some of the high schools, it was their homecoming week, so they had their own thing going on. But the important thing was that everybody was doing some kind of Spirit Week during the 3rd week in September. And so what we developed was themes based on that, routines, engagement, access to resources and learning. And so we went with routines as wearing patterns, engaging as that was twin day, access, we had them dressed like an emotion, which was interesting. And there were some interesting creative ones. And then learning was either college or job or a job uniform. And I wish I could have put together a slide of all these, but we had kids, like little kids showing up in suit and tie. We had some showing up in fireman gear, like, electrician gear, like all kinds of stuff. It was great. They did really, really cool stuff with that. And then Friday is School Pride Day. So, but all of our departments participated. So and you can see our human resources participated as well. They get very competitive because I have these little trophies within the district office. And so then their participation was based on them posting pictures on this Padlet. And so between early childhood and human resources, and then actually fiscal, were surprisingly involved in this process. But they really like the fact that a lot of the Spirit Week kind of things are normally limited just to school sites. And so the district office really liked being able to participate. So that was kind of a tier 1, really talking about positive school climate, culture, that kind of thing. So I'm going to talk about some of the things we're trying to do at tier 2. And as I was mentioning to Amir, some of the things I'm going to focus on today are not specifically geared towards attendance itself. It's really about reducing some of the reasons why our students are not on campus, if that makes sense, particularly responding to some of the behavior and disciplinary issues that we're having. So we have a team of people called prevention specialists. They're at all of our secondary sites. They are under student services, and they focus very specifically on mentoring type relationships and addressing kind of the needs of the students that are surfacing at the tier 2 level. And so there's 3 primary responsibilities for this group. One of them is edge coaching. And if you're not familiar with edge coaching, and I can send some links, it's a program or a structure of mentoring and specifically structured conversations to focus on addressing students who are struggling with executive functioning. So it's really just regulation, organization, all of those kind of things. It's very student driven. But the important piece of it, we use that particular program, but there's many different types of ways to have these conversations that are available out there. But the important thing that we've found is it's the intentional one-to-one relationship with a caring adult on campus. And so with edge coaching, they set up appointments where they meet with that student weekly, and it's a 15-20 minute session. So it's not a huge amount of time. But one of the other pieces about this particular role is that they're not a teacher, they're not a site administrator, they're not one of the academic counselors that's trying to tell them they're not on track to graduate. They are really just focused on helping the student be able to get to know themselves and be able to navigate a school setting. So the edge coaching is a primary role. Right now, they're required to maintain a caseload of 15 students. Previously, it was 30, but we've added some other interventions that they're in charge of, and there was just no way we wanted to make sure we were doing it with fidelity and doing it with justice, doing justice to the students on campus and not overloading a caseload and then having to reschedule and not being able to follow through. And so we have prevention specialists at all our middle schools, all our high schools, as well as one that supports our alternative continuation high school and jointly supports under student services. So I'll talk a little more about some of the things that he does as part of our tier 3 as well. The other 2 things that this group has really implemented themselves is that we were seeing, obviously, I'm guessing you're seeing similar trends, an uptick of drug violations and fighting on our campuses. And it just seemed to be a lot of, okay, we're suspending, and a lot of people kind of throwing up their hands saying, oh my gosh, there's drugs everywhere and we're fighting, and why, nothing's being done about it. And this group decided that they would be the ones to put in place the interventions. And so we already had a substance use intervention. It's a series of 5 lessons. So after a student receives their first drug violation, they go through a program, what we call Insight, which is 5 lessons, really focus on them being able to identify what's going on behind the behavior, alternate options, how they can do things differently, but it's very self-reflective for these students. And the prevention specialists, like I said, are in a really great role because they're not in a position of authority in that they're not going to get students in trouble. So they actually are one of our greatest sources of information because students will open up to them and be really honest about their drug use, about the trends that they're seeing on campus, about the types of drugs, where they're getting access. And so then they're able to share that with us for us to be able to respond. So we, and I'll share some data with kind of some of the outcomes here in a second. So that was already in place. But one of the things that they realized was that we were seeing issues with fighting and we didn't have a response for that. And there wasn't really anybody stepping up to say, hey, this is what we're going to do with kids who get in a fight. So they developed a couple of them. One of them is a trained marriage and family therapist and is working on her credential to be a school counselor. I'm hoping I still keep her on my team now because she's amazing, but she really helped us develop the curriculum for what we're calling AMS, which is an aggression management support. 5 lessons, very similar style to the Insight lessons. And it's very specifically assigned to students after they have their first fight violation, 48900 A1 or A2. And then if they have a second violation, then there is a level 2 to that curriculum that's put in place by this same group. And we piloted it last year with the high school prevention specialists. This year it's rolled out to everybody. And we, and I'll be able to share what it looks like afterwards as well. But it has made a large difference. We're already seeing that kids being able to take that really intentional look at what's happening with them. And the one thing that we're really having to work on with our school site administrators, though, is that they see this as great anger management, and they kept trying to put all sorts of kids, like try to give them AMS. We're working with the school counselors to be able to put small groups in place specifically for anger management or that preventative piece. But this is very much an intervention after there was an incident, and for them being able to use that incident to then reflect and make changes to their behavior. And so we are seeing initially some really good results from that. And if nothing else, it's very similar to like the edge coaching, where these prevention specialists were able to develop very positive, supportive relationships with the students that are coming through AMS and Insight. And then some of them actually transition to be an edge coaching kid. And then they wind up being the go-to. Counselors will walk, kids over to the prevention specialist and say, he's yours. We're working on that, but they've just done a really amazing job at being able to establish these relationships. And so then one of the additional things that's happening with them is we are working through the school-based health initiative or incentive program through managed care plans. Some of you may have heard about that. So we're working with Molina and IEHP. And one of the intervention pieces that we're looking at doing as part of that sort of grant program is that all of these prevention specialists will go through the process to actually be certified drug and alcohol counselors. We are very much lacking any of those kind of resource supports in the Coachella Valley, specifically for young people. We have some substance abuse counseling services, but primarily they're directed at adults, and it's very difficult to find really supportive services for young people. So we tend to kind of, if we don't have a solution or we don't have a resource, we're going to grow our own and figure out how to do it within our school district. So some of the outcomes that we've seen. So last year with our Insight program, looking at, and the way I pulled this information is just when Insight was documented as a disposition. So that's how I pulled it from our intervention or from our student information system. But we had 519 referrals for drug violations that included either a first or second offense referral. an intervention referral. So we had, of those, 427 were insight referrals. And then we had 92 second violation referrals last year. So the way that you're looking at that information is that of those students that received insight, only 92 of them had a second offense. The reason I have a little asterisk there is that we also include this within a grade span. So that means that if they're at high school and they had a violation in 9th grade, and they have another violation in 10th grade, they'll get a second offense referral. So some of those 92 could have had their first offense in a prior year. And then our initial results so far with the AMS program, and we are definitely seeing the need for that. And again, I'm sure you're seeing similar trends, but we've had 94 fight violations that actually have an AMS referral. We've had 86 AMS initial referrals, and then only 8 that have needed a second offense. Yes, it's early in the year. Yes, we're really hoping that I'll be able to maintain these numbers later. But at least at this point, one of the things that we were seeing last year, that was part of the reason that we put this in place, was we would see kids, they would get in a fight, they would be suspended, they would come back, no intervention takes place, and a couple days later they get suspended again for getting in either a fight that was not resolved or just a different situation, but that they just never learned to do anything different. So these are some of the things that we're really trying to be intentional about some of our responses. And so the tier 3 kind of program that I'm looking at, or that I'm going to focus on today, and like I said, these aren't specific to attendance. These are kind of some of the reasons that are the ways that I see are barriers to our attendance. But we are really, and I don't know how you all are doing in your districts, but we historically have done a really bad job of helping students transition back into our school communities after they've been expelled, after they've been incarcerated, or even just we had students who disappeared during the pandemic for long stretches of time and then are trying to come back and re-enroll with us. And so historically, they would just show up at the registrar's office and enroll, and that's it. And nobody has really made an intentional effort to connect with them over what's been happening over the last year. And so we are very lucky to have a team of 5 school social workers, one of which is assigned specifically under student services. And so she is part of this re-entry team along with myself. And then, as I said, we have a prevention specialist who supports our continuation school, but also works with student services. So he has the ability to support students on all sites. So we go through a very intentional intake meeting with the social worker, prevention specialist, parent, and the student to do an initial kind of baseline. We go through a process of figuring out what the student, what their goals are, what they see as their strengths, what they think they're going to need help with as they transition back, and then what resources they know they already have. And then we do an intentional meeting at the school site with the school counselor, school administration, whatever other support staff at the school site that will be part of that process of supporting the student when they re-enter that campus. And then the social worker and prevention specialists do regular site check-ins with the student and the parent to see how things are going, see if there's any needs that they have. And then there's a follow-up about 6 weeks in, 6 to 8 weeks in, a follow-up kind of reconvening the team to just make sure that everything's on track and to address any needs. And so just as a former site administrator, I knew that I was on the side of being very frustrated when I would get an email or something from student services saying, hey, this kid's coming back to you. He'll be there Monday. And like, that's it. And so I really wanted to make sure that we weren't just dropping kids back onto a campus, but actually being able to hand them off with a system of support. And then the great thing about the social worker is that she's able to then reach out and support the family and be in regular contact with the parent, see if there's any needs that they have that they need to address. And so, so far we're seeing some positive results. Again, some of these things are kind of in the works new, but they're things we haven't been doing previously. And so these are things that we wanted to make sure that we were intentionally focusing on. So, and then a couple other things I just wanted to share as sort of resource information, and some of you may use Panorama. My executive director and I talk all the time that we're not paid by them, but we have found an amazing amount of quality just resources with using this program, and the amount of things that we're able to do in an easier way. So Panorama is what we use instead of Healthy Kids Survey. We're able to do staff, students, and family surveys around social, emotional learning, around risky behaviors, around school climate, all of those kind of things. And so one of the resources or areas that we use regularly is the Student Success Portal. This right here is just a screenshot of a school. Like if you log into a specific school, this is one of the high schools, what it looks like at a glance. And so each of these boxes are clickable, and you'd be able to see and filter down below this on the actual portal. You see actual names of students. But if you click on any of these, you're able to filter down. And so I'll show you in a minute, this is how we're able to work with our school counselors to identify some of the intervention groups that we're going to target and that kind of thing based on where they're falling. But it really gives us the ability to look at the students overall. It also has a fantastic, it just visually very appealing, but super easy to look at. And so as you log into an individual school, it gives you, if you're looking at attendance, this is one of the screens you'd be able to look at. It gives us an immediate idea about attendance. It feeds from our student information system, so it's updated nightly. We know the daily attendance for middle and high schools is a little delayed, so we don't always look at that 100%, but with elementaries, it's pretty accurate by the next day, so we were able to look at that. But one of the things that's great is that this screen shows us a trend. So I have little arrows here, and you can see between these two schools, we had one that had a major drop off on Wednesday, October 12th, and then one that had a major, it was actually very good attendance on Wednesday, November 12th or October 12th. So that gives us the ability to kind of look at some of these trends and identify some of these things. The difference here is that school A is a high school, and I'm trying to remember what was happening on that day, but school B is a middle school. They were doing parent conferences at this time, and it's amazing how good our attendance gets during parent conference week. But so these are just some of the resources available. And then this was the piece I wanted to be able to share about how we identify intervention groups. So this group here is filtered, and I blocked out the student names, but basically you're looking at a student at a glance and being able to see how they fall overall with their academics. And then if you click on each, it expands to give you more detailed information. Their attendance, it shows their number of behavior incidents, and then the SEL portion is their individual results from the Panorama survey and then the most recent one. You can also go into that and look at their trends. But one of the things I like, if you see all those down arrows, I filtered this by students who were in the yellow at-risk category for attendance and were trending down. So that meant that they were showing trending that they were missing more days now than they were prior and at risk of going into the chronic stage. And then it also shows their grades or their academics. So it'll show you we've got a couple of students that were a student that's trending up in their academics and one that's trending down. And so this, you can click on all of these and put them into a group. And so what I've been able to do is work with my team. So the prevention specialists have an EDGE coaching intervention group, so they can see this screen with all of their EDGE kids. They've started Insight and AMS groups, so they can look at the kids that have gone through Insight and AMS and see them at a glance. I've started doing that with the students who go through SARB, and then being able to use this as my follow-up to see how the students are doing post-SARB meetings, as well as the students that go through the re-entry process with us, and then some of the other mentoring programs that we are working on. So again, if you can either find some kind of support like this, or if you're using Panorama and didn't know these things were available, it's really amazing. So they've just been awesome. And then as part of our response, they also have a playbook portion, which is just strategies put together by teachers that are built, they're filterable to be able to address very specific areas. So you can look under behavior, you can look under very specific focus areas. If you're trying to address students who have attention-seeking behaviors, then it has a whole bunch of different strategies that you'd be able to use, all developed by teachers. And then it includes all the information that you would need within it, the goal of that strategy, and information to be able to respond. So that's another piece that we utilize when we're trying to work on some of those tier 2, tier 3 with students that are struggling, that we're able to point them to this resource. And so I'll just wrap with a couple of things. You know, one of the things I know people are feeling it this year, probably more than any other year, as I recall. October already is a difficult month, no matter what year it is, and this year seems extra. And so I always, focus on the adult mindset, because that does make a huge difference. I know we talk about trying to adjust student mindset, but the whole idea that we can't make a difference, especially when we're talking about attendance, that's a battle that we fight all the time, is that it's a parenting issue, it's a kid choice issue. Schools can't do anything to impact it. And so we're really able to focus on, or I try to get people to focus on those small things that we can do, those positive relationships, just even the positive greetings, support staff, bus drivers, cafeteria, all that kind of thing. And then I'm sure you're familiar with Rita Pearson, but just every child needs a champion. And we know, particularly with our disconnected young people, that the relationship with a caring relationship with a significant adult makes all the difference in the world. So again, I will be able to share this information, some of the resources that I mentioned, links and that kind of thing with you all. I'll share it with Amir and he can send it out to the group. But otherwise, I really appreciate your time and attention and for letting me share some of these things. Again, we haven't magically fixed everything, but we're continuing to do that work every day. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was an excellent presentation. What fantastic things you have in play, and congratulations on your appointment as the Director of Student Services. It was an obvious and outstanding choice. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa to follow up on that great presentation? I know there were a couple in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute and ask questions, please do.
Hey, Ms. Todd, this is Carmina Campos, Coachella Valley Unified School District. Congratulations once again on your assignment. I did put, and thank you for the presentation. Well done as always. I did put in the chat in regards to the panorama survey and that school attendance slide. We also have panorama in our district. Do you know that that's included, or was that an added feature?
So initially we were only using Panorama for the surveys. So we were only accessing the survey piece of it. And so it's an additional piece of that student success portal that has all of those other pieces where you can drill down to look at individual students, look at by schools and that kind of piece. So yes, it's separate from just the basic survey resource, but we found it's just been very, very helpful.
Okay, thank you. And obviously it's additional, so I'm assuming that there's a charge that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering.
Please go ahead, please.
Sorry, I just was able to catch the tail end. I see this is being recorded. Will this be shared back? I was only able to catch the tail end, but I'm so excited to hear your success with Panorama. And our district, we are looking at kind of piloting some of our schools with Panorama, and I'm really trying to, just because the research that I did was that they're so, successful. So I just would love to, share out any other districts that already have been using it to see if this is something sustainable with the cost. The cost is pretty hefty. If you can share your opinion, whether it's, worth it or not for districts that maybe are struggling to sustain that cost.
Well, we're here huge fans, and I'm sure Amir can probably connect with any of the other districts that might be utilizing it. But we really, in particular, the last 2 years have really expanded our use and the access, including not just the school counselors and site administrators who have access, but also now all classroom teachers are able to see that kind of student screen for themselves. And so what that means is that they're using that as part of their tools for parent conferences, where it's not just about the grades, but they're able to look at the, again, whole child. They're able to talk about their SEL results, and it talks about self-motivation and grit. Those are some of the measurements within Panorama. And so they can use that as part of their more high quality conversation.
Thank you, Lisa. And we had a question from Maricela about whether this would be recorded, and we had some questions about the material. The materials, I went ahead, I've created in our county SARP folder, a folder where I will put all of the PowerPoint slides, materials from last year's and this year's presentations for you all to review. And then we have a YouTube channel, YouTube attendance channel, where all the videos from last year and this year will be uploaded. So all of those, except for, of course, today's, have been uploaded. So please feel free to utilize those. I'll put some other resources in our county SARP folder. You're all welcome to it. I also put my information if any of you want to reach out. And if you have any districts that you feel should be highlighted or anything else, we want to make this a really valuable event for our statewide community. And then we also had in the chat a question from my good friend and former teammate, Carlos Corona, who asked, what are schools doing with parents that refuse to enroll their kids in school or disenroll kids without enrolling them somewhere else?
Well, and I don't know if this is a question for me, but I mean, I'll chime in here. And a couple of things, we're really lucky to have some specific teams. I mentioned the prevention specialists, but we're also really lucky to have a team of district community liaisons who are amazing and do a ton of work with our families. And honestly, that's a battle. It's been a battle the last couple of years, especially the students moving in and out of independent study programs or not being successful in independent study programs, needing to be dropped and families not wanting to enroll them back in in-person instruction. It just is taking a lot of conversation, hand-holding, trying to find an appropriate response or program that'll work, but it's just a lot of contact and follow-up. That's the best that I can say, Carlos.
Thank you, Lisa. And we have another question in the chat from Tatiana asking, do you have a prevention specialist at every site?
They're just at our secondary sites, middle and high schools. We are working on some interventions at the elementary just because we like to think we have no drug violations at the elementary level, and we do. So we're working on a couple of things, but right now that would be through the school counselors.
Awesome.
And then Cecilia, I saw your question. So the positions that we have are paid for through our LCAP. And we've been really lucky. Initially, when I came on, the prevention specialists were a role that was not super well defined. Every site was using them differently, and it kept winding up on the chopping block in terms of talking about whether we should continue to fund them through the LCAP. Now we actually have the data to be able to justify, and the fact that they developed the AMS curriculum themselves and took on and are addressing the issues that have happened. now I have principals saying that they want more of them, as opposed to why do I have to keep paying for them? So, or why is the district paying for them? So that's huge. If we can, obviously they would like to work themselves out of a job and or be entirely on the prevention piece and not necessarily intervening, but that's where we're at.
Oh, thank you. I love how you connected the sustainability with the results. That's really, really smart. Thank you.
All right, and then we had another question about the title of the book that you mentioned, Lisa, and it's this one here. If I can get it to show up on the screen here, it's the School Leaders Guide to Tackling Attendance Challenges, and I put that in there in our chat. If anybody wants to look up that book, it's a fantastic book. We've distributed to some of our districts in the past and probably will do so again. Anybody have any more questions for Lisa? Well, I want to thank you all so much for your time. And Lisa, what a fantastic presentation and what a fantastic program that you have. And I really loved to see what you're doing in your tier 2 between the EDGE mentoring and the Insight program that addresses substance abuse and AMS. Anger management and interpersonal conflict. These are really barriers that create attendance patterns for our students. And one of the main themes that I saw in your presentation was uprooting the root causes as your approach to improving attendance. And of course, your tier 3, the use of fantastic. I'm so glad we get your PowerPoint, and I will upload those to our folder. And please, everyone, please distribute the emails that you have. That link is good here, and the dates are there. Spread it to your friends. The more, the merrier. And hopefully we'll have other presenters that will give us an awesome set of resources like Lisa, our newest director from Palm Springs Unified, has. So thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you all for your time. And we hope to see you at our next Lunch and Learn. Have a wonderful day.